Alrighty, this is the Negative Podcast, Season 1, Episode, I believe 8. And I was going to originally do this just on a quote and just rant on it for however long by the governor, Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. But searching for this quote, I came across the interview in which it was from. And now I'm just going to do the entire interview, which is 22 minutes and 9 seconds, minus, I guess, the ads here and there. Because this was just, it is old, so I'm not sure why the quote from the interview is coming up now, but we're going to just get right into it. I just feel like this entire interview, she was either disingenuous or she had to have her head up her ass. One of the two, maybe both. This was just, I couldn't take it. So this is how I'm going to do it before we actually get into it. I'm going to have it be, since the lady is like asking the questions, I'm just going to play it from where the lady asks the questions and then when Gretchen answers and then is finished talking. And that's how I'm going to do my reactions.
Good morning, Governor, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us during this incredibly challenging time for the nation, and including Michigan. So first, I would just love to hear your response to the protests that we're seeing going on against police brutality. In Michigan, it was even happening just in front of your office in the Capitol yesterday.
That's right. Right now in our country, there's a lot of pain, and you see it playing out all across America. We saw it playing out here in Michigan. And we're in the midst of a global pandemic that has disproportionately hurt communities of color. You layer onto that a 500-year flood that we had here in Michigan just a week and a half ago. And then this police brutality that we saw play out on camera in Minneapolis that is so visceral. And as a mom, I can't even conceive of the pain that Black women and parents across America have every time their children or their spouse or any of their loved ones leaves the home. What happened to George Floyd was a crime, but for it being captured on video, we would not know his name. And yet we know this happens. It happens too often in the United States. This is historic pain that has come to this point and driven us to this point. And all of that being said, the protests by the organizers have largely been peaceful. They're there for the legitimate, righteous reason of simply wanting to be treated equally under the law and safe in communities. And they're right, and I stand with them. I think that there are others who are using this moment to for their own agenda and undermining, the real spirit of what these demonstrations are about. And I think that's incredibly sad. And I think we have to be determined as a country to fix the underlying problem, to acknowledge the truth and righteousness of the pain that people are feeling, and to do better. And I think it all comes from who our leaders are. And that's why we have to organize into this moment, into a movement.
Now you...
Okay, so she was asked about the protest. Then she sort of mentioned the riots in there. And then she mentioned the police brutality in which they were rioting about. And I just... Is she not blowing smoke? Is she not just disingenuous or just completely out of her mind at this point? How do you bring up the pandemic in which you are one of the governors who feel like you need to super duper prolong the shutdown, but yet you understand the riots in which, according to you, well, your philosophy and the way you're governing, those people who are protesting are putting everybody else at risk. So how could you be okay with it just because it's about police brutality? Where's the priority? Where is the organization there? Isn't it life or death? How many people are dying from police brutality as opposed to the pandemic? And then this idea of I stand with them, where? In your office? When were you ever out there protesting? I don't know how people listen to people like this, leaders like this, and be on their side. They obviously are just saying shit. She said, maybe she'll say later in the interview, but us leaders need to come together and organize, or whatever she said there. I don't know if she said leaders need to come together, but she said something about organizing. Organizing how? Because all I see is you leaders attacking each other once it comes to the point where you want to get voted in. So again, how do you listen to these people and side with them? Just because they say something you want, now all of a sudden they're right?
You acknowledge the pain that a lot of people are feeling. How do you lead at a time like this when people are feeling such pain and injustice, racial injustice that they felt for hundreds of years? What is your message to the protesters?
Well, I think every one of us with a position who has the ability to live our values has a responsibility to understand as well as we can, recognizing that we'll never be able to fully walk in someone else's shoes, but to be smart enough and empathetic enough to hear, to listen, to understand, and then to make the change that people deserve and want to see in this country. It is on all of us, but it's also on us to empower communities of color, to ensure that their voices are a part of decision making and in positions of power. And that's what's so important. The Lieutenant Governor, Michigan's first African-American Lieutenant Governor, and I have talked a lot about what we are confronting as a society, as a state, and where we need to be headed. And I'm grateful for leaders like Garland Gilchrist and the incredible people in my cabinet. It's the most diverse cabinet in our state's history, and yet we know that that's one step toward addressing this, but there's much work to do.
So when these politicians are speaking about the black people and all this stuff, and I actually had a family member who said that she's down for Gretchen because Gretchen is for black people. Like, do they never acknowledge or understand and see where the black people are coming from who don't agree with them? Or is it literally only the quote unquote oppressed black people that they care about? And how much of this interview or is her position solely about black people? The riots and the pandemic. I think she said the pandemic earlier had disproportionately affected the colored community. I don't know if she's trying to include Mexicans or whatever, but she just said the colored community. Okay, how do you fix that? They don't offer any type of inch of this is what we plan to do. This is a solution. No. It's just straight up, we need to care for black people. Black people matter. We need to, like, how? But as long as they say that, they're for you somehow. And then you believe it.
Are the Lieutenant Governor have any plans to join?
And the original question was, how do you lead? And again, apparently it's just, you link up with a black person. That's how you lead, basically. Just get with a black guy.
Protest yourself?
So I have, we have talked a lot about positions of power, and that's what's so important. The Lieutenant Governor positions of power, and the Lieutenant Governor in our state's history, and yet we know that that's one step toward addressing this, but there's much work to do.
Do you or the Lieutenant Governor have any plans to join the protest yourself?
I was trying to get it back to this point, but I just want to make it very, very, very known right now before she starts talking. The question is, do you have plans to join protest yourself? Because remember earlier I pointed out, she says, I stand with them, but has yet to join the protest, even though she supports the protest. Do you plan to join the protest yourself? That is the question. Let's see if somehow she starts talking about how black people are awesome.
So I have, we've been in touch with protest organizers. I know that Garland was walking around in Detroit last night. I've been walking around in Lansing. I think that it's really important that we do show solidarity, but also that we not let this moment defeat us spiritually or intellectually, that we remember the power of being together and the lessons from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that if we want to be the change we deserve in this world, we have to show the kind of leadership that will drive that change.
So speaking of...
she's in contact with protesting organizers or something. It's like, the riots are out there. Just go. Just show up in your state-sponsored car and get out and join the protest. That's how you join. And she said she was walking around in Lansing. I just pulled up Gretchen Whitmer in Lansing. I'm not seeing walking around. I'm not seeing it. Let me put walking in Lansing. Let me put walking in there. You know what? Go ahead and just put the word protesting. See if that shows up. No. Maybe Google just doesn't have it. Maybe they don't. But again, she gives a very specific question. Do you plan to join the protest? It could have been very simply, yes, I am going to do it next Sunday. Or I plan to do it after or before my next press conference, because I have a million of those. I never really do anything to advance this unlockdown or advance the riot's objective, which is get colored people equal treatment under the law. But again, she's in touch with organizers. And somehow she's for you, right? She really cares about you, right?
That leadership. On Saturday, there was a sheriff in Flint who joined the protesters, and this video kind of went viral. And you said it was an example for law enforcement. So what conversations are you having or have you been having with police chiefs to facilitate more of that kind of community engagement?
Question. What conversations are you having with police chiefs? And she said something about this conversation or something like that. Let's see if she gives us an up-the-ass answer or an actual answer.
Yes, I've been working very closely with our mayor across the state who, hire all their police. I've been working closely with the colonel of the state police, who is a part of my cabinet, as well as the adjutant general, who's the top person when it comes to our National Guard. We know that we have to live our values. And what we saw play out in Minneapolis is not just unacceptable, it's criminal. And everyone who was a part of it, meaning the other 3 officers as well, need to be held accountable for that. Also recognize that we need to highlight and uplift great examples of leadership, like the sheriff in Genesee County, who joined marchers and said, we're going to make this into a parade. And they said, walk with us. I mean, it was a powerful moment, and I hope people see that, because there's so many examples where it's not working. There are examples where it is. I saw a picture of a number of police take a knee in honor of George Floyd and to speak out against police brutality. And I think those are powerful visuals that I hope people see too.
So just to be...
No, I don't have really anything to say to that. I think she answered it fairly well. I still think there's a lot of filler in there, but I'll take it, I guess.
Clear, you mentioned the other 3 officers who were involved in the incident. You think that they should be arrested and charged as well?
I do. I watched Keith Ellison, the Attorney General in Minnesota, this morning on the news say that they're doing their due diligence. And as a lawyer myself, I understand it's important to get it right. If you want to get a conviction, you got to get it right. And so I know that they're doing the due diligence. I have confidence in Keith Ellison and his office's ability to get justice. But understandably, everyone's feeling impatient and raw right now. And I think, it's important to recognize this one officer who we know has been charged also had 3 others who were right there with him. And whether they held George Floyd down or they stood there while this was happening, I think that all needs to be taken into account and they should be held accountable.
Okay, so the question was, do the 3 guys who were also the officers who were also there during the George Floyd killing or incident, as whatever you want to call it, she said it doesn't matter. Well, I won't quote her because I'm kind of messing the words up here, but she said it doesn't matter if they actually held them down themselves or if they were just standing there. They need to be brought up on some kind of charge. I don't know. I can't remember if she said murder, but no, absolutely not. Listen, I know you want to look at that and go, well, they were there and they didn't stop him. You got to realize that actually putting your knee on the person you're reprimanding, it's kind of common. When you go watch Cops, any episode of Cops from 80 million years ago, them using the knee, the elbow, all of that stuff, that's pretty common. So one cop misuses it and the other 3 are there thinking that he's not going to kill this guy. You cannot arrest them for that. That is completely unfair. At this point, I really would understand if every cop in America just started quitting. Because if I'm out with another cop and they misuse their power, and you want to look at me and bring me up on their charges because they mishandled their power, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people have been critical of President Trump's reaction to the whole situation. A lot of people believe that he's making it worse. What's your take on how he's been behaving?
What's her take on President Trump's behavior as far as everything, literally, all 2020?
I think that in this time when this country has so much pain, it is so important that we have all leaders speaking to our mutual interests of hope and justice and security. And the fact that there's none of that coming out of the White House, the fact that not only that, but when you see some of these tweets, it's inflaming the situation is unconscionable. I really think that it's unconscionable.
I heard the president is holding a call with governors later today.
She said the president's tweets are unconscionable. Definition of unconscionable is not right or reasonable. What's not right or reasonable about them? I mean, give an example. I don't understand how people, and don't get me wrong, I'm not this whole big, huge Trump fan and all that stuff. But when you all make claims about Trump, do y'all realize y'all never really have any evidence about what you're making a claim of? It's literally just you going, oh, Trump's a racist. Oh, somebody said he doesn't like black people. Oh, Trump, his tweets are unconscionable. They're not right or they're not reasonable. Oh, just because they're not. All right, I guess that's enough. Let's move on.
And mayors, I believe, to discuss the ongoing protests. Are you invited to that call?
It's on my schedule, yes.
And what would you hope to hear from him, if anything, at this point?
Yeah, my hope is always that they're going to get it right and they're going to acknowledge the legitimacy of the pain that people are feeling. That they are going to call upon all of our better angels to rise to this challenge and to make this country better than it is right now. That they're going to call for calm and make the kinds of investments that address historic inequities in our culture. That's my hope. Am I confident that's going to happen? I wish I could say that I was.
She just said that she will hope that he would kind of make some type of, I guess, make it seem like they're all equal, make them all equal, something like that. But then statistically, they brought up the fact that Trump did more for black people than Obama did. in his whole 8 years in just 3.5. I don't know how you have that take when the stats say that kind of has. Nobody has refuted the stats that oppose him, so they must be true. Because you attack him nonstop, so they must be true. If you hadn't attacked the stats that he or whoever brought up the stats to put him out there. So basically, what you just said is kind of irrelevant or a lie. How do you listen to her? Or do you people who listen to people like this really listen to them? Or do you listen for specific sound bites and go, that's the person I'm voting for? Because of the sound bite. The clip I saw on YouTube.
You mentioned how he's been describing the protesters, some of his tweets. What was your reaction when you saw that he called the armed, locked down protesters in Michigan, good people, hearkening back to Charlottesville and very fine people, but then he seemed to threaten violence against, anti-racist protesters going on the last couple of days?
Okay, the question that they have posted, I'm not going to go word for what she said, but I'm reading the question that they post each time she speaks, which is, what do you make of Trump's reaction to lockdown protesters versus Floyd protesters? Now, the protesters they're comparing, if you don't know, back when there was a lockdown, I think here in Michigan, I'm pretty sure it was here in Michigan, people went into some place with guns to protest the lockdown. I'm not sure if that's considered a threat. I personally don't think so, because if you've ever listened to any of my YouTube videos, and depending on how long you are, I am on record saying we probably should have another actual all-out civil war. Why? Listen, if you want to call me crazy, fine, probably so. But the differences that we have now are no longer just some big, is legalized marijuana. We're not even trying to debate stuff like that anymore. We're trying to debate actual rights now. Free speech, the Second Amendment, privacy. We're talking about those rights. And if we're going to talk about those and put those on the table, you kind of got to go back to the original reason for why they came about in the first place, which is a war. So that's and then you obviously know the Floyd protesters, which has been going on for 6 months now. So they're comparing that to that.
Well, I can tell you this, as a governor of a state of 10 million people, the mass majority of the people in this state are doing the right thing. We have flattened our curve because of it.
Really?
They're good people who've made real sacrifice in order to save other people's lives. And those pictures do not depict who we are here in Michigan. And yet, every one of us who...
Okay, I know I'm supposed to let her finish, but that just annoyed the hell out of me. She said the majority of the people are doing the right thing, which I'm going to assume that she's trying to say it, that they're doing it voluntarily, because you're the same person who forced businesses to not only shut down, but the ones that can open, to wear a mask. If the majority were already doing that, then why did you need to implement that law then, or that bill? They both can exist and make sense. So either you don't trust the people to do the right thing, or you do. Which one is it?
As a platform, has a responsibility to take actions that protect our people, that create opportunity, that call on people's best instincts, not fuel their worst fears. And that's precisely why, as I see the tweets come out that inflame the situation, it frankly infuriates me, because we are trying our best to save lives in this middle of this, global pandemic. We're trying our best to make sure that people have the opportunity to demonstrate, because they have a righteous point of view and they deserve to demonstrate however they want, so long as it's safe. And that's precisely what we're trying to do on the front line. And any effort to undermine that, I think, is unconscionable. It's the only word that I can use to describe it.
Okay, what else just really annoyed me was she said that the leaders should be um, igniting people's best instincts and not their worst fears. So, sending everybody into a lockdown, then telling them that they'll be fined or jailed or they have to wear masks because it's life or death, and forcing this as opposed to giving them the information and letting them decide, that's igniting their best instinct and not their worst fears. Their instinct would be to make a decision, not be forced to do what you want them to do. So, more smoke. And I missed that last part, so I'm gonna have to actually take it back a little bit.
And any effort to undermine that, I think, is
a little bit more
to demonstrate however they want, so long as it's safe, and that's precisely what we're trying to do on the front line. Any effort to undermine that, I think, is unconscionable. It's the only word that I can use to describe it.
Are you worried about seeing a spike or a second wave of infection?
We're trying our best to make sure that people have the opportunity to demonstrate because they have a righteous point of view and they deserve to demonstrate however they want, so long as it's safe, and that's precisely what we're trying to do on the front line. And any effort to undermine that, I think, is unconscionable. It's the only word that I can use to describe it.
Are you worried about seeing a spike or a second wave of infections because of all the protests that are happening?
I am worried about it. I was worried about it during the protests against the stay-home order. I'm worried about it anytime people are congregating because we know COVID-19 is still here. And COVID-19 is still spread from close contact. And that's why when I see people gathering without masks, yelling, projecting their voices, we know that's precisely how COVID-19 spreads. And that's a fear. I want people to be safe. I respect people's First Amendment rights. I support their right to demonstrate. But in the midst of a global pandemic, it's very, very concerning.
So she's concerned about a second wave of the coronavirus, that they say 85% of the people that die were like old. But okay, like everybody now. But here's what I don't understand. This was possibly the dumbest way to do a lockdown, though, right? I mean, first of all, in my opinion, if you're going to go into a lockdown because of a life or death virus that's airborne and all that, why don't you tell everybody literally just stay in the house for 2 weeks? They come out, they get shot. If you are like, whoa, get shot, that's a little, remember, life or death. So why wouldn't you not take life or death measures? Still go outside for regular shit, but just not the gym or restaurants. That doesn't sound like life or death to me. So that, I call your bluff there. I think you're a liar there. And why wouldn't you just tell everybody who does remain open for business that they have to do delivery? Why would you not do it that way? Because let's be honest, this contactless stuff that everybody's doing is a joke. You still have to hand me the stuff. Is it not coronavirus on this? You're really telling me that the way we operate right now is not, it doesn't spread COVID. So we can spread it a little bit, but just not a lot. And then after we spread it a little bit, and then we finally open back up, it'll just go back to a lot. How moronic is this?
On Friday night, the Department of Justice, I think, announced that it was backing a lawsuit by 7 Michigan businesses against your COVID-related stay-at-home orders. Do you think that you are being targeted by the Trump administration in this sense?
She got a lawsuit from some people, and The question was, do you feel like you're being targeted by the Trump administration? That is the question. Do you feel that you are being targeted by the Trump administration?
You know, the fact that they are weighing in is surprising and disappointing, frankly. And we're going to fight, because I know that every action I've taken has been in the interest of saving lives in Michigan and has been on the right side of the law and within my executive powers. I'm not going to apologize for using every power at my fingertips to save lives. I'm always going to do that. That's what my job is. And so I was disappointed to see them weigh in, but it's not going to change. I'm not going to be bullied into changing the work that we're doing, because we've saved lives and we're going to continue to do the next right thing.
Were you surprised?
I really don't know if was that a yes? Was that a yes? And listen, about the whole powers, her using her powers to save lives and all that stuff. Just because you use your powers and you're within the law doesn't mean you made the right decision. It doesn't. It does not mean you made the right decision. For stopping the entire nation, the state, all of that, and then just handing out checks once. I don't agree with handing out at all. You shouldn't have fucking stopped the economy. But that doesn't mean you made the right decision. So I just Googled the governor's job, and I'm going to read it so we can be clear on what the governor's job is, at least according to Wikipedia. As such, governors are responsible for implementing state laws and overseeing the operation of the state executive branch. As state leader, governors advance and pursue new and revised policies and programs using a variety of tools, among them executive orders, executive budgets, and legislative proposals and vetoes. I guess safety and saving lives is in there. I guess that's included. Whatever. I guess we can just assume a whole lot of stuff based on what we read, right? Like how the Second Amendment somehow means that, yeah, you can have guns, but only the guns people say. So I guess here is like, yeah, because responsible for implementing laws and overseeing the operation means that, yes, it includes saving lives. Whatever. Moving on. And the next question now is, were you surprised by pushback? First of all, this is the original reason I even wanted to make this podcast right now about this. Is for her to say, I won't be bullied into doing anything. What if businesses are suing you because you shut them down and then did nothing to keep them afloat? That's not bullying you. That's, hey, I'm dying over here. You're saving lives, right? What about mine? I might not be actively dying, but hell, when this is over, I'll have nothing. Nothing. My business will be gone. My house might be gone. My car might be gone. My kids might be starving to fucking death. We might be out on the street. Hey, I need to open back up. I need to do something to actually save my life after you're done being a piss ass about something. So either she was deflecting or she was just being an outright ass. Either way, that I don't think that's your job.
At the pushback from Republicans and lawmakers in your own state when this started happening?
So it's not surprising in one realm, because as soon as the president started tweeting about me, the whole tenor changed, and it went from a public health crisis that is a threat to all of us to a partisan issue. And that's really when the tenor and here on the ground changed, was when those attacks started coming from the White House. And so I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed.
So you're saying the president had sort of a direct hand in your own pushback that you faced?
I'm just saying the timing matches up.
Again, yes or no? Yes or no? Can you even say you think so? Oh, the timing's there, but I won't say anything. What is this? Are you leading, or are you just playing some game with some guy who you don't even really want to acknowledge in anything? What are you really doing? And why can't you
I
ask?
also know
Why can't you ask her anything directly? Anything.
that he has a tendency to attack not only yourself, but Attorney General Dana Nessel and Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, and you all happen to be women, which I think is a pattern that we've seen. So what do you make of his often dismissive gendered attacks against you?
Well, I think that it's just a part of what the reality is that we're dealing with here. I can't tell you what's going on in the mind of what's behind these attacks. I can just share your observation that they are unique to us. I don't think that we've said anything different than our male counterparts across the country have, but we certainly have been treated differently, and you and your viewers can make their own assessment of why that is.
All right, so it sounds like they really just asked her if does she thinks that Donald Trump attacks women, and of course, yeah, it just seems that way. It's just always men say the same thing we say, and you're talking about the same guy who called out Obama. You're talking about, I haven't followed Trump again, I'm not a Trump supporter. I haven't followed his stuff, but I'm pretty sure he's Donald Trump to everybody. What exactly does he have to fear from everybody else? Especially now that he's the president. What does he have to fear? What does he have to fear from any male governor? That they're going to take his position? So he has had nothing to say about Joe Biden. Nothing. Maybe he's only does this to people who he feels is in the wrong due to him. That's just my guess, but maybe that's what it is.
Now I understand.
And by the way, this is a very weak position to play. Very weak. To make it seem as if anytime you might can point out maybe a dude is a sexist or whatever and do this, that's very weak because you're strong, right? You're strong. Why are you trying to point out that he's attacking you because you're a girl? And coming from a group of people who always want to do shit that apparently the other side was already doing because, I don't know, empowerment. Stop using this. This is whack.
And that it also escalated into death
Sound like
threats that you were
crybabies.
facing during this time. So how did you deal with that personally? What was the real effect of that?
All right. So the question was,
I mean, it's
damn it. The question was, how do we deal with death threats? We're in the last 9 minutes. I think they're kind of out of questions at this point, and I'm going to skip this one, but I want to skip this one, but I just kind of just going to call it quits here. I've got the part I wanted. So yeah, I'm going to stop it here. Sorry about the little interruption at my phone. I do this on my phone, so my bad. But so yeah, follow me on YouTube, Mr. Negative, the Negative Man, as well as share this podcast with whatever social media that you have. All right, and be right, not positive. I'm out.